Thune, you're recognized for your questions.
Thank you, Chairman Peters and Ranking Member Fisher, and thanks to all the witnesses for being here today. It's already been pointed out, we all know that the country is facing an unprecedented supply chain crisis, with Americans encountering empty store shelves, long wait times, and rising costs as the holiday season approaches. Agricultural producers are also feeling the crunch, with capacity for their goods being hampered by a combination of surging demand for containerized shipping and a massive backlog at our nation's ports, particularly LA Long Beach. This inefficiency has downstream effects on commodity prices, which is hurting farmers and ranchers across the country, including in my state of South Dakota. And that is why Senator Klobuchar and I, along together with Senators Hoeven and Baldwin, plan to introduce the Senate companion to the Ocean Shipping Reform Act of 2021, which takes significant steps to clarify the authority of the Federal Maritime Commission in resolving disputes and curbing anti-competitive behavior. I believe these changes will increase the accessibility of the FMC to smaller shippers and provide the agency with clearer authority to intervene when unreasonable practices related to the movement of cargo are discovered. More generally, our nation's ports are desperately in need of two things: modernization and transparency. And a failure to invest in terminal automation and port efficiency initiatives such as data sharing compounds the problems we are already facing today and puts the United States below the global average in vessel wait times, which is why I'm also proud to be a co-sponsor of Ranking Member Wicker's Freight Act, which takes strong actions to improve the movement of freight, I should say, across the supply chain. A resolution of this crisis is imperative, and I look forward to discussing this matter with our witnesses today. Mr. Krug, thank you for being here to testify today virtually about the supply chain challenges that your business has faced throughout the pandemic. I've heard from several businesses like yours and can certainly understand the frustration of losing hard-won business across the world due to circumstances that are entirely out of your hands. As I previously mentioned, the bill that I plan to introduce with Senator Klobuchar would provide the FMC with authority to pursue enforcement action if truly unjust or unreasonable practices related to vessel space accommodations were discovered. Do you believe that such a change would help address the challenges that you're facing in getting your products to markets across the world?
Yeah, that certainly sounds positive and helpful, and we appreciate all of your efforts in that regard. And so yes, the answer would be yes. I think that'd be very, very beneficial. I did have one more idea in regard to that opportunity if I were king for a day. I was just thinking about that. I think I'd order everyone to go to the movies and buy 2 boxes of popcorn.
Okay. Well, I don't think you'd have any opposition to that idea on this committee, at least not from this senator. You mentioned in your testimony the difficulty you face in getting containers inland, and I'm just wondering if you have any suggestions for what Congress can do to ease the movement of containers once they leave the ports.
Once they leave the ports?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing there is good communication from the shippers to us. One of the big costs would be if we plan on 10 containers coming and then our good forwarding companies are only able to ship out 2. So the better the communication is in regard to, no, this ship really is going to not come in, it's not going to be available, it will be 3 weeks. While that doesn't really solve the problem in the big picture, it does help reduce demurrage charges and warehouse that are overfilled, because you're expecting to ship 10 and you get 2 containers. So that would be one point.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Doyle, you mentioned your testimony the effects of demurrage charges on the price of your products and called for an increase in the enforcement capabilities of the FMC with respect to detention and demurrage charges. And the bill, as I mentioned, I plan to introduce with Senator Klobuchar, would require the FMC to further define what constitutes unreasonable detention and demurrage practices, while also establishing a separate streamlined complaint process to more efficiently resolve disputes. Do you believe that improvements to the complaint process and better guidance from the regulator on what constitutes an unreasonable detention or demurrage charge will help to address the challenges that you're facing?
As I mentioned at the beginning, since our contracts do not have us as freight responsible, we see the end of this, but not the causes of it. Everything you've said sounds logical, but I would certainly defer to the people who are wrestling with the issues. I don't understand the current condition well enough to, I think, give a reasonable answer to your question.
Mr. Butler, can you react to that?
Senator, I think having better dispute resolution mechanisms probably would benefit everybody. There's some other provisions, if I understand the bill correctly, that would like to work with you and your staff on having to do with certification, for example. There's some real problems with how that would work. But in general, the FMC has a lot of authority today. If we can make it quicker and easier to get disputes resolved, I think that's all to the good.
Okay, thank you. And thank you, Mr. Chairman.